This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. This is what we're going to call the grand finale of the Tzava Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid. Maybe an original take on the whole thing. I think it's the Devarim Pshutim, and just a perspective. Not a leniency, not a loophole, just a certain attitude, which I think is important to have toward the Tzava Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid. So the bottom line, is one chayiv to abide by it? So this is how it seems, Lefi Anias Daiti. There's a Gemara Masechta Tainis. The Gemara says as follows: Asur la'adam l'shamesh mitasai b'shnei rabbain. It is asur for a person to engage in marital relations in years of famine. Yeah? It's a Gemara. The Gemara learns it out from Yosef. Why? It says, Yosef yulad shnei banim b'taram tavai shnasara. Frak Toises. Wait a second. There was somebody by the name of Yocheved. When was she born? She was born Ben Achaimis. So who are her parents? Right? Levi. Right? So wait a second. That means they were Meshamish Mitasam, Mishnei Rav. So they very nice. Yosef. The Gemara says Asur, and we learn it from Yosef. But what's Levi doing? The Gemara says Asur, and Levi obviously was Meshamish Mitasam. Frak Toises number 63 on the sheet. Vim Taimar Hare Yocheved Nolda Ben Hachaimais. Va'isa is Rav Haya. Va'karchel Shimshu Mitasam Mishnei Rabbain. You see number 63? So Gemara says Asur based on Yosef, and Levi violated it. Says Toisus Yesh Shloimer Dilukule Alma Loi Have Asur. It's not Asur for everyone. Elo Lamisha Roitza Lino Igatzno B'Chasidus. If you want to act extra pious, then it's Asur. And if you don't want to act extra pious, you don't have to, and it's mutter. V'Yosef Loi Shimesh. Yosef was an extra pious. That was Shabnei Adam Shimshu. But Levi wasn't a chassid. Don't you have to be a chassid? No. Isn't it a beautiful thing to be a chassid? Maybe. So shouldn't you do it? No. Yeah, but it's an Indian. Shouldn't I do it? No. But I see the tzaddik doing it, so should I do it? No, you shouldn't do it. If you want to do it, kadosh. Now, if you want to do it, you have to do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. That's it. Yeah, listen carefully. You hear the gather? The gather is, there are things in Judaism that for some people they have to do it, and some people they don't have to do it. It's not across the board. Somebody came over to me, do I have to say Yud Gimel Ani Mamins? No. Should I do it? I don't know. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Not everything you have to do. If somebody asks us, should I do this? You shouldn't do it. But he does it. Good for him, he's a Kadosh. But listen to what Tosfos is saying. That means for some people, it's Asur to be Meshamish Mitasa Mishnei Rabbi. And for some people, it's not Asur. Who is it Asur for? L'misha Roitzel L'Nagatzna B'Chasidus. If you want to consider yourself a Chassid, then it's Asur to be Meshamish Mitasa. You don't have to consider yourself a Chassid. I'll give you another example. You ready for this? The halacha is that when you get dressed in the morning, you have to do it under the covers. That means if you take off your undershirt, it must be under the covers, as Shulchan Aruch said. Any part of your body which is normally covered has to be covered. You can't uncover it. Nobody's in the room, doesn't matter. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees. And to the extent where it seems to show, no, you cannot change your socks. You have to change your socks under the cover. Your feet are normally covered. You don't live in Africa. You don't live in Israel. In Israel, you could be a member of the Knesset, and everyone has to see whether your toenails have fungal. But in America, we cover our feet, we cover our socks, and it would seem that since your feet are normally covered, you should do so under the cover. I'll read to you the Mishnah Berurah. I'll read to you the Shulchan Aruch. La yilbash chalukay meyushav. Don't put on your shirt sitting, because again, they used to sleep with basically under the cover without anything on. Ela yika chalukai. While you're lying down, you put on your shirt. V'yikanis barosha, stick your head in it. Uzrayosav. While you're under the cover, this way, when you emerge from the cover, you're not uncovered. The Shulchan Aruch continues. Al yoymar, don't say hineni bechadrei chadar mi royeni. HaKadosh Baruch Hu malay charetz kavaydai. Listen to the Mishnah Berurah. Meyushav, you should get dressed sitting. If you get dressed sitting, your body will be uncovered. Person needs to act with modesty and shame before God. Even in the nighttime, you can't get dressed in your room unless you're covered. Even in your inner chambers, light is like dark, dark is like light. Even a man cannot uncover part of his arm that's normally covered. You could uncover your arm until your elbow and your neck until your chest. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, your socks, you need to put them on under the sheet. You go around besandalim, beclocks. You wear shoes like a normal person, yeah? So you can't just take off your socks. Unless it's yefshar. Unless you're in a beis hamerchas where it's the derech to go that way. Fine. Comes Rav Moshe, and Rav Moshe says, even though the Shulchan Aruch says you need to do this, you don't have to do this. But the Shulchan Aruch says you have to. You have to if you want to be a chassid. This is milsa de chasidusa, Rav Moshe says. So how do you know which halachas are milsa de chasidusa and which halachas you have to do no matter what? You have to ask. But this is an example where it says you have to do something and you don't have to do it. You could put on, if you want to change your undershirt in your room when the door is closed and nobody's in there, you're allowed to. But the Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to if you want to fulfill milsa de chasidusa, but this is not an absolute obligation. So what do we see from here? That there's a level in halacha called milsa de chasidusa, which you have to do if you want to be a chassid, and if you don't want to be a chassid, you don't have to do it. Is it possible, and I never saw this anywhere, I'm just conjecturing, that Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid wrote a book called Sefer Hachasidim. These practices, you think they're mamish asur? Or these are saintly practices that if you want to be a chassid like Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid, to consider yourself a chassid, you need to abide by these practices. Likewise, if Yehuda Hachasid left in a tzava, is it possible to say that it's not more chomer than a sif in Shulchan Aruch that Rabbi Moshe Feinstein says is just milsa de chasidusa? Or I'll give you another example. There's a tshuva in Rabbi Yaakov Hillel's Sefer Siman Chaf, Vayashav Hayam. Rabbi Yaakov Hillel says it says in the Arizal that you shouldn't marry a woman older than you. So says Rabbi Yaakov, first of all, you have to know that whenever the Arizal says not to do something, he doesn't mean not to do it. That's not a rule. Whenever the Arizal says not to do it, he doesn't mean not to do it. He's talking in Kabbalistic realm, and all the Arizal means is that since in the reality of the world most people marry ladies who are younger than them, he's commenting on that reality and giving a Kabbalistic reason for it. But unless he says, I paskin lahalachu lamaisa not to do it, he doesn't even mean not to do it. And even if the Arizal says not to do something halacha lemaisa, you're not mechuyev to listen. Only if you want to be a chassid. If you don't want to be a chassid, you're not mechuyev to be a chassid. That doesn't say anywhere you have to be a chassid.
But an older woman could be issued a puravu.
What?
But an older woman could be a problem with puravu. If you're marrying someone so much older.
It depends how old you are. If you're 90 and she's older, it's going to be a problem. If you're 17 and she's 22, it's not a problem, right?
Now it's worth a couple grand.
Yeah, you can make a few bucks off it. But be it as it may, I'm just bringing an example that there are inyanim that people think are asur. It's mamish not, it's mutter. It's 100% mutter. It's asur for if you want to be a chassid. You don't have to be a chassid. Nobody has to be a chassid. You just have to follow Shulchan Aruch. You follow the meat and potatoes. People are worried about most of the Chasidusa. Stealing and honesty and all the other stuff, that's not important. It's all about Chasidish. I'm not talking about Chasidish. I'm talking about extra saintly practices. I think it's very reasonable to assume that when Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid wrote his Sefer, he's writing most of the Chasidusa. Now, do you have to be makbid on most of the Chasidusa? If you want to, then you have to, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. Anyway, this is not just for your thought. I'm not saying this lamaisa. I'm not saying this halacha. I'm just pointing out from a Tosus and Tainus Yiraf Amud Beis. I'm pointing out from a tshuva from a Moshe. I'm pointing out from a tshuva from a Yaakov Hillel. There is a level called Nosa de Chasidusa, which is not incumbent on any Jew. Levi, Milanu Gado Mi Levi, where the Gemara says Asur and Tosus says Levi did it, and there's no problem that he did it. The Gemara says Asur l'shamish mitasa b'shnei rabbain, and Levi did it. How could Levi do it? Because Asur doesn't mean Asur. Asur means if you want to be a chassid. Levi said, I don't want to be a chassid right now. I don't have to be. I have to be a chassid? I don't have to be a chassid. Anyway, Rabbi said this concludes this segment of the Tzava Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid, and we hope in the zchus of learning the Torah Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid, zchusay yagein aleinu v'al Yisrael. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.